Okay, I think we're all assembled. So why don't I go ahead and call this meeting of the Operations Planning Committee, OPC, to order for Monday, May 20th, 2024. We'll go ahead and get started. Jim Palin is not going to be on today. I spoke to him earlier today, and Jeremy is filling in for Steve Olvani. So I don't know if anybody has any time constraints. Usually it's Tracy. Tracy, I'll let you go first. You are on mute.
Seriously, we should have this figured out by now. I wasn't expecting to go first, but thank you very much. Session ended May 8th at midnight, and a few of the things I suppose that we did, we redistributed the ARPA funds back out. So that was kind of our last couple days trying to figure out where they needed to go. I think some points that Darien might be interested in. We were able to get the bonding information in for our schools, which was, and maybe Jill might talk about that a little bit later, but there were 3 school construction projects from the past, and maybe I'll kick that back over to Jill later, but we were able to get that in one of the bills, which was good. Something we don't necessarily have a lot of problems necessarily now in Darien, but certainly our surrounding towns do. And this is the sale of, or the illegal sale of cannabis in some of the smoke shops. And I don't know that ours have necessarily been bad actors in this case yet, but we did pass a bill. One of the cannabis bills that we passed allows police officers to hold both the owners of the building and the owners of the company accountable, whereas previously it was only the people that sold the cannabis at the shop that would get a fine. So it was very much as soon as the weed went out the front door that the police came in and confiscated, that it was being filled back in the back door. So I think this will give our police a better opportunity to keep that under control. Also not necessarily something that we think about as being a necessary thing, but looking at some of the healthcare workers across the state, we did a nurse licensure compact. This allows nurses to go from state to state and easily transfer their licensure. This is also the same way with social workers. So, when we're looking at healthcare as an overall issue, trying to get healthcare providers here, that's something that we believe will help. We've also extended telehealth. So certainly with mental health issues, across the state post-COVID, we were able to dig in and allow telehealth in this capacity, but it was expiring. So we at the state level felt that this was something that, and we heard from people across the communities that this was very helpful to them, and it seemed to be working. So we have extended that as well. I know there was a lot of issues with whether some of the planning and zoning issues were going to go through. That's kind of a big issue for Darien, but the bills that would most affect us didn't in fact make it through. So I think I've continually worked on this, trying to find really good solutions that we can grasp onto, and we'll continue to work with you guys on that in the future. And I don't want to take up too much of your time because I could go into a lot of depth, but if you all have questions, you can, text me or something, and maybe in the future I can touch briefly on that in these meetings as well.
Okay.
I think that's all I've got for now.
Any questions for Tracy? Okay, thank you. Jill.
Okay, I don't have too much to report today. In terms of the government process, we have 2 active appropriation requests, which you guys have certainly all heard about. We'll be at the Board of Finance tomorrow night for those. We have one for security having to do with communication and exterior hardening for just over $1 million. And we have one for an operating deficit for this fiscal year 24 of about $180,000. The Hinley happening was just a couple of weeks ago. Hinley was very lucky to have a beautiful sunny day, and so I was thrilled to be able to enjoy that also. But I mentioned it in part because, as Tracy started off with, we are getting ready for the Hinley Homes and Royal construction. In fact, we already did have trailers on site, and we were, those are off in the corner, and I use the Hinley happening as a way to demonstrate that they are away from active traffic. So anyway, there are trailers at all 3 sites, and we are ready to go on June 17th with proverbial shovels in the ground. Recently, there's been some news coverage about the schools. You've seen me most likely quoted in the paper. There is an active investigation, so certainly as a board member, I won't be commenting on it other than to say, as I said in the paper, that I affirm the board and the superintendent's desire to maintain an environment for staff and for students that is free from anti-Semitism and other forms of hate.
Okay, thank you, Jill. Any questions for Jill? Okay, Seth.
Yes, well, we had an exciting evening passing the town budget on Monday night. That was it was long, but effective. I think we got it all done. Going forward, we moved the RTM meeting to later in June, so that some of these items which are pending can get resolved, and we can go ahead and act on them before the end of the fiscal year, June 30. On the docket so far, we have the reimbursement to the state for the shuffle, $67,000. We're gonna undertake the Green Bank agreement. I think these are all on the agenda right now for the Rules Committee, which meets Monday night. But I think they will show up on the RTM agenda as well. The special appropriation for $1,074,000. We'll see how that comes out, but I'm putting it on the rules agenda now because I have to publish it. We'll wait until after the Board of Finance meets to hear what they're going to, that gets passed. We have a special appropriation for Great Island also on the rules agenda for $2 million. How that's going to be handled will depend upon the mode of financing that the Board of Finance wants to use. But I tucked it on the rules agenda anyway, just so we'd have it there. We can always take it off if it's not required. The Board of Ed deficit that Jill mentioned, an appropriation for 88 Hanson Road, and rescinding part of the bonding resolution for Great Island for $11.7 million. So though that's a lot for one night, we have some non-financial things like the start time for RTM meetings and the Pledge of Allegiance to vote on that. Whether that will all get on the RTM agenda, I'm not sure. Sometimes the Rules Committee just says, that's enough is enough. Let's just take the funding and move anything else. So we'll see how the Rules Committee acts on that. But that's what's going on. And never dull, huh?
No, Seth, you're never dull. Any questions for Mr. Morton?
We will do a public attagirl to Kate Bush, who stepped in the middle of the budget meeting and took care of one rather technical question on parking and who owns what, and that was great.
I know she relishes every opportunity to speak in public, especially on live TV. So thank you, Kate. There's the smile of approval.
Yeah, just happy to help.
I'm standing up there looking for a way out, and lo and behold,
the Deus Ex Machina comes out of the stage and
There
resolves
she is.
all the plot conflicts. Okay. Mr. Ginsburg.
Sure. We've got a couple things to bring to everyone's attention. One is related to what Tracy mentioned. The Planning and Zoning Commission has put forth a proposal to amend the zoning regulations to not allow marijuana dispensaries or I'll call it the producers in town either. We don't have any currently, which is great. And Steve Olvani and the rest of the commission said, I think this is a type of use we can live without in Darien. So the public hearing on that, I'm looking at my calendar, is Tuesday, June 11th. So if anyone wants to send a letter supporting the ban, that would certainly be welcome. We'll pass that on to the commission members. We're obviously uncertain what is going to happen at the public hearing. I would imagine there'll be people who come out and support the ban, but who knows, we may see people on the other side. But the commission felt it was appropriate, even though it's been our opinion, it's never been allowed, this to just clear up any misperception or
Jewelry store burglary caught on camera and can.
Sorry about that.
so that's June 11th. So if anyone has comments, send them our way. Dr. Adley has comments. We read them into the record or submit them for the record. The other item of note would be accessory dwelling units. The commission passed zoning regulation to allow accessory dwelling units under certain circumstances in town. That takes effect on June 30th. That month-and-a-half time frame gives staff sufficient time to prepare checklists, instruction sheets, update the town website, give a little time for public outreach via the newsletter, Instagram, Facebook. We have started meeting with people who are interested in establishing such units. We'll see how it goes. The first person we met with met all of the qualifications except for one, so they left a disappointed customer. So Mr. Olvani has suggested keeping a list of who we meet with and which criteria they may or may not meet. And if we need to change the regulations, the commission is open to doing so, but they kind of wanted to see how things shake out first. So that's a pretty significant change in town. We do not foresee that there will be a lot of them constructed, but it is something different for Darien. So we want to get the word out to people, and we're busy meeting with customers and potential ADU owners and operators over the next month and a half. The other item of note is the Bertucci's car wash is back. As you know, last year there was an application to turn Bertucci's into a automated car wash, one where you drive through and you dry yourself. That was eventually withdrawn, but they've now resubmitted, and the hearing on that will be in June or July. So those are the major items coming out of planning and zoning, and enough to keep us busy as we work on other things and it's our busy season for permitting as well, especially major pools. So for example, the Tokenie Club that wants to open for Memorial Day weekend, we have to do final inspections on that. So busy time of year for us.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Jeremy?
The only thing I would say is that Stanford butts right up against us, and there are shops that sell marijuana, and I don't know what Stanford is doing for enforcement, but I think it's worth a discussion with somebody over there because it's walking distance. It's not hard to get there. That's all I had.
Tracy?
Yeah, thank you. I had a comment for Jeremy, and I suppose you do know this because I at least I know the gentleman doing construction in my house already knew that there is you need to have the fences again around pools. At one point they took that away and said you could just have the pool covers, but now it's back up saying you have to have the fences. Okay.
Yeah, that's going to be very difficult. I've spoken to Mike Vitti over in the building department. What he has to do is now retroactively reach out to people that did the automatic pool covers in lieu of a fence and tell them, thank you for spending the extra money on your pool cover. Now you need to put up a fence. And in fact, you saw I had to log off this call for a second. Someone is here at our counter, has to put up a pool fence, and is not too happy about it.
Yes,
So,
I agree. The whole retroactive bit was awful, and we tried really hard to take that piece of it out. I understand that the pool cover is not effective. But when do we do zoning retroactively? It doesn't really. So, yeah.
it's going to be a very awkward thing for the building department to have to reach out to people, especially when people want to open their pools this week, to say to them, oh, you're going to have to get a pool up as soon as possible,
Mhm.
or a fence up rather. So it is going to be difficult. And it's, as you know, Tracy, we deal with a lot of state legislation that passes and doesn't pass. And a lot of our time is spent responding to that. And I'm glad that very little passed in the legislature relative to housing legislation, but I have a feeling that next year, being a long session, they'll have more time to dig in and spend more time on those types of issues.
And John, are you going to, maybe I can give a shout out and say that tonight is the zoning board for the cannabis shop across from Giovanni's. So
Yes.
if people want to speak at that, they can register. They can register to speak for that. And I think you've got it listed on the town website information as well. So people can speak. They are point is they're allowing Darien people to speak up against it or for it.
Yep. Okay, any other questions for Jeremy? Okay, for me, so just following up on Seth's question and just a general comment about the cannabis dispensary, as Tracy said.
Excuse me, I've got to get my vocabulary straight.
Right. So as Tracy said, there is a hearing by the Stamford Zoning Board tonight, and it's a continuation of a hearing process that they launched on May 6th. The issue is that there's been so many people that wanted to talk that they couldn't get them all covered that night. And I'm sure there's quite a number of folks registered to speak tonight on the Zoom meeting. If you don't have information on how to do that, you can go to the Stamford Town Government site. They have information to show you how to register. There's also a group here in town that is keeping track of all this. They have an email address, darienspeaks06820@gmail.com. And if you would go to send a note to that address, they will put you on a distribution list and make sure you have the information you need to be able to register for the call tonight. Just further to, I think, Seth's question about cannabis being available for sale in other places in Stamford, and that through these, either the shops that they've authorized as dispensaries, or these smoke shops that are selling it outside of the legal dispensary places. Yeah, it remains a problem. As a lot of folks know, sometimes the marijuana being sold in those locations has a very high THC concentration, and that is super dangerous, especially for folks who are not used to it or don't know what they're doing. So continued vigilance on that's going to be required. A couple other comments from me. We are continuing to work through expired board and commission appointments. So these are the appointed boards instead of the elected boards. We've fallen behind on a number of those appointments, and so we're going through a process of cleaning all that up. We're going to be doing interviews for the Parks and Rec Commission tonight, and more to come on all that. Another comment I'd have is on Pear Tree Point Beach. So I talked at the last Board of Selectmen meeting about the Parks and Rec proposal to do some improvements on that site, primarily around three areas. One is raising the parking lot so it's more resilient to the flooding. I know a lot of us have seen there. Two is to reconstruct the boat ramp, and three is to do some dredging kind of around from the boat ramp down to where the gas pump is there. That's dredging we've not done in about 25 years, and it's time to move forward with that. So I am concerned about erosion at the beach and the potential for storms and rising seas to affect that. So I think we need to start moving on all that. So at the Board of Selectmen meeting, we decided to put that out for bid. So we are going to wait and see as that process goes along, what bids we get. On Great Island, the Great Island Committee met in executive session. They are close to finalizing a decision on a consultant who would work in parallel or alongside the Great Island Committee to help us with the design and ultimately the strategy for Great Island. The first two phases are around exactly that, which is fact finding in terms of the public's input into this process and developing a design for us to move forward with in terms of what we're going to do with Great Island. So it's very exciting. We talked to some tremendously qualified firms. The $2 million appropriation that Seth mentioned that's going to be up before the RTM covers the maximum cost that we expect to incur for this consultant. It's going to be a separate appropriation. And so I would urge both the Board of Finance to pass that tomorrow as well as the RTM. Those will be the resources that we need to set in motion the work of a consultant to help us move that project along. Further to that, Seth mentioned that there's going to be an agenda item for the RTM to rescind part of the original $103 million appropriation that was approved by the RTM for the purchase of Great Island. As everyone knows, we got that down to $85 million, which was the final purchase price. We bonded for about $91 million. Some of that money's been spent for getting the island ready, and there's a number of other expenditures that we need. But the difference between what's been bonded and what is sitting in cash, which is the $91 million less the 85 that was spent in these other expenditures. I think, Kate, there's about a little over 4 million in cash that's still sitting from those bond proceeds. The leftover appropriation, if you will, which is the 11 million Seth is referring to, that has not been bonded. That's just available appropriation that we could spend. And we all collectively think that's a good idea to just hand that back to the RTM and not spend those funds. So what we're going to do is what we've asked as a Board of Selectmen for them to do is to rescind that appropriation. And that if more future spending for Great Island will come through a regular appropriation process instead of being spent from those appropriated funds.
John,
Yes.
could I clarify? We
Yeah.
can only spend those funds on certain things, which were the acquisition and all those items to put the island into use.
Right.
So we don't think we need all of it.
Yeah, that's a good point. So when we talk about that, it's about some of the environmental remediation that's not done. It's the repaving of 23A. Is that included in that amount? Some of the signage and all that. So there's a number of things that we will spend those funds for. But to Kate's point, I don't expect that we'll even use that money all the way up for, quote, get the island ready type investments. So more to come on that. But in any case, we don't want to use the other 11 million that is unbonded appropriation.
I think the RTM will be very happy to pass that.
Well, no, it's just good practice. I mean, the original rationale for that appropriation was the purchase of Great Island. We didn't need to spend all of that money on the purchase of Great Island, and therefore we should get that appropriation back, and I'm completely fine with that. A couple other items. We've experienced some crime we don't normally see in Darien, and so this was the smash and grab theft at the David Harvey Jewelry that took place last week. I remain pretty concerned about all that. I know it's under investigation, and we'll wait to see what that investigation yields. But it's just a good reminder to everybody in town that when it comes to your personal assets, whether it's your home or your car or anything else, that should be locked up. And so take some time to take stock of where you are on all that and develop good habits for securing your valuables. That's not that crime is such that folks are going around stealing all the time, but it helps get the message out to those folks that says, when it comes to Darien is locked up. We take care of and lock away our things. And so if you want to do this, you need to go someplace else because when you get here, it's locked up. So it's a good practice to get into. As I was told by our police a while back when I was asking about car thefts, they did report that in 100% of those cases, those are folks who've left their cars open with the keys inside. So that message is getting out to the criminals of the world, and it's important that we do all we can to reverse that perception. So finally, on May 9th, there was a presentation called The Power of Trees at the Darien Library, and it was led by Juliet Kane and Megan Hetherington. And it was pretty interesting because particularly in Juliet's presentation, she talked about native plant species and the removal of invasives. I thought both these folks did an outstanding job with their presentation. I was there the entire time. And I've asked Juliet if she would be willing to talk about native species and invasive removal to our Parks and Rec department, as well as Public Works. They do a lot of, well, all the tree work for public properties here in town. And I just thought it was a very useful message that she had, and applaud her and Megan for the time they spent talking about it. So I will be calling on them in the future to share that knowledge with the folks who do that kind of work for the town of Darien. That is all I've got. Does anybody have any questions for me? Okay. I appreciate everybody joining today. Thank you very much. I will take a motion to adjourn, and we will see you at the next OPC meeting.
So moved.
Seth moves and Jill is going to second. So all in favor? All right, we stand adjourned. Thanks, friends.
Thank you.